Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a marketing manager for a tech startup in San Francisco, and I'd been working my ass off for 2 years straight to prove myself in this company. But when I came home from what should have been my career-defining business trip, I found my front door locked and a handwritten note taped to it that read, "If you want to stay, live in the basement." Let me ask you something. What would you do if your own family treated you like a stranger in your own home? Because that's exactly what happened to me. And what came next changed everything. 2 weeks earlier, I'd been chosen to lead our company's biggest client presentation in New York. This was huge for me, a chance to finally show my parents that their investment in my education had paid off. I'd been sending them money every month since I graduated: car insurance, phone bills, groceries, even their Netflix subscription. I figured it was the least I could do since they'd helped with my college loans. But I should have seen the signs. The week before I left, my younger sister Emma had been dropping hints about needing her own space. She'd just started her sophomore year at the local community college and was apparently feeling cramped, sharing a room with our youngest sister. Emma had always been the golden child, straight A's, never caused any trouble, always knew exactly what to say to make mom and dad smile. Meanwhile, I was the one who'd struggled through high school, changed majors 3 times, and took an extra year to graduate. The business trip went perfectly. I closed the deal, impressed the clients, and even got a text from my boss saying I was being considered for a promotion. I was flying high on that 2-hour flight back to San Francisco, already planning how I'd tell my parents about this career breakthrough over dinner. But when the Uber dropped me off at our family's modest 2-story house in Daly City, something felt off immediately. The porch light was on, which was normal, but there were new curtains in my bedroom window. Through the gap, I could see different furniture, a white desk where my black one used to be, and pink fairy lights strung along the wall. My key wouldn't turn in the front door. I tried it 3 times, thinking maybe the lock was just sticky, before I noticed the piece of notebook paper taped at eye level. My sister's handwriting, but clearly dictated by my parents. "Sarah, welcome home. We've made some changes while you were away. If you want to stay, live in the basement. Your room is now Emma's art studio. Thanks for understanding. Family." I stood there for a full minute, reading those words over and over. Not, "We need to talk," not, "There's been a change in living arrangements," but a goddamn eviction notice written like a cheerful post-it reminder. I tried calling my mom's cell phone. Straight to voicemail. Dad's phone, same thing. Emma's phone, declined after 1 ring, so I walked around to the backyard and used the spare key hidden under the fake rock to let myself in through the kitchen door. The house was quiet, but I could hear muffled voices coming from upstairs, my parents' bedroom. I climbed the stairs and found all 3 of them sitting on my parents' bed, like they were having some kind of family meeting, the meeting I apparently wasn't invited to. "Oh, Sarah!" My mom jumped up with this fake surprised expression, like she hadn't been expecting me to actually come inside. "You're back early!" "My flight landed exactly when I texted you it would," I said, still holding the note. "What the hell is this?" Emma couldn't even look at me. She just kept folding and unfolding her hands in her lap. My dad cleared his throat and stood up, putting on his reasonable parent voice, the same tone he'd used when he explained why I couldn't have a car in high school while Emma got one for her 16th birthday. "Sarah, sweetie, we've been talking while you were away, and we realized that Emma really needs her own creative space. You know how important her art is to her future." "My room," I said slowly, "is now an art studio." "The basement is fully finished," Mom chimed in quickly. "It has its own bathroom, and we cleared out all the storage boxes. It's actually quite cozy down there." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "You moved my stuff to the basement." "We thought you'd understand," Dad continued. "You're working now. You're successful. You're hardly ever home anyway with your job. Emma needs the natural light for her paintings, and your room has the biggest windows." This is when I realized what was really happening. See, Emma had been having trouble in her art classes. Her portfolio wasn't strong enough for the university transfer program she wanted, and she'd been dropping hints for months about needing better inspiration and the right environment. My parents had been scrambling to find ways to help their precious youngest daughter succeed, and apparently Displacing their middle child seemed like the perfect solution. "You couldn't ask me first?" I said. "You couldn't wait until I got back to discuss this like adults?" Emma finally spoke up, and her voice was small and guilty. "We thought you'd say no." "Of course I would have said no." The words came out louder than I intended. "That's my room. I've been living in that room for 8 years." My mom got that tight-lipped expression she always wore when she was about to gaslight someone. "Sarah, you're being dramatic. It's just a room. Family means making sacrifices for each other." "Sacrifices?" I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my banking app. "You mean like the $400 I send you every month for car insurance on vehicles I don't drive? Or the $60 for the family phone plan when I have my own phone? Or the $150 for groceries when I eat maybe 3 meals a week in this house?" The room went silent. Even Emma looked up at me now, her eyes wide. "That's different," Dad said quietly. "That's you helping family." "But me wanting to keep my own bedroom is dramatic." "The basement really is nice," Mom tried again. "We put your bed down there, and your dresser fits perfectly against the far wall." I walked out of their bedroom and down the hall to what had been my space for nearly a decade. Emma had already moved in completely. Her easel was set up in front of my window, canvases stacked against my former desk, and her clothes hanging in my closet. She'd even put up new pictures on the walls, photos of her and her friends, her art school acceptance letter, a vision board covered with images of European art studios and fancy paintbrushes. It was like I'd never existed in that room at all. I went downstairs and opened the basement door. They'd moved my stuff, all right. My bed was shoved into the corner next to the water heater, my dresser blocking the small window that faced the neighbor's fence, and my books stacked in cardboard boxes because apparently they hadn't bothered to bring down my bookshelf. The cozy space smelled like mildew and laundry detergent, and the ceiling was so low I had to duck under the heating ducts to reach my bed. This wasn't a bedroom. This was storage space with a mattress. I sat down on my bed, the same bed I'd had since I was 14, and tried to process what was happening. My family had decided without me that my living situation could be changed on a whim. They'd taken the space I'd grown up in and handed it over to Emma like it was theirs to give. Then they'd stuck me in the basement and written a note about it like they were being generous. But here's the thing they didn't know. I wasn't as helpless as they thought I was. 3 years ago, my grandmother on my mother's side had passed away. Grandma Chen had been the one person in my family who'd never made me feel like a consolation prize. She'd encouraged my career ambitions, celebrated my small victories, and never compared me to Emma's artistic talents or my youngest sister's academic achievements. When she died, she left me something that nobody else in the family knew about: a coastal apartment in Half Moon Bay. Grandma Chen had bought the small one-bedroom condo back in the 80s as what she called her thinking place. She'd never told my parents about it because, as she'd explained to me during one of our private coffee dates, sometimes a woman needs a space that belongs only to her. She'd made me promise not to tell anyone until after she was gone, and when the lawyer had called me 6 months after her funeral, I'd kept that promise. The apartment had been sitting empty for 3 years. I'd been paying the property taxes and HOA fees out of my own pocket, visiting maybe once every few months just to check on things and air it out. I'd always thought of it as my future, maybe a weekend retreat when I could afford to furnish it properly, or a place to move when I was ready to live completely independently. Sitting in that basement, surrounded by the smell of mildew and the sound of the furnace kicking on, I realized the future had just arrived ahead of schedule. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for the property management company that handled the building. It was almost 10 p.m., but I left a voicemail asking them to call me first thing in the morning about getting the utilities turned on. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. First, I calculated exactly how much money I'd been contributing to my family's household expenses. Car insurance for 3 vehicles, $400 a month. Family phone plan, $60. Groceries, $150. Netflix, Hulu, and Spotify family accounts, $45. Internet bill, $80. Random emergencies like Emma's art supplies or my youngest sister's school field trips, usually around $200 a month. I'd been paying nearly $1,000 a month to live in a house where my own family had just demoted me to the basement. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Not just angry, absolutely furious. This wasn't about the room or even about Emma's art career. This was about respect. This was about my parents seeing me as a wallet with legs instead of their daughter. This was about them assuming I'd just accept whatever scraps they decided to throw my way, because I was the successful one who didn't need coddling. Well, they were about to find out exactly how successful I could be when I wasn't supporting 3 other adults. I spent the next hour going through my banking app and setting up automatic payment cancellations for every single recurring charge that benefited my family. Car insurance? Canceled. Phone plan. I'd switch to my own individual plan in the morning. Streaming services? Goodbye. Internet bill? They could figure that out themselves. Then I started planning my escape. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove straight to the property management office in Half Moon Bay. By noon, I had electricity, water, and internet scheduled to be turned on within 48 hours. The apartment was exactly as I remembered it, small but bright, with huge windows facing the ocean and a tiny balcony where Grandma Chen used to drink her morning tea. I stood in the empty living room looking out at the Pacific and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete peace. This was mine, not my family's, not something I had to earn or justify or share. Mine. The apartment was furnished with Grandma's old things: a comfortable couch, a small dining table, a bed with an actual frame instead of just a mattress on the floor. Everything was covered in dust sheets, but underneath it was all perfectly preserved. Even her teacup collection was still in the kitchen cabinet, wrapped carefully in tissue paper. I spent that first day cleaning and getting reacquainted with the space. The more I explored, the more I found evidence of my grandmother's secret life here. Photo albums full of pictures I'd never seen. Grandma Chen walking on the beach, reading on the balcony, hosting small dinner parties with neighbors I'd never met. In her bedroom closet, I found a journal where she'd written about her freedom days when she'd come here to escape family obligations and just be herself. Today, I told William I was visiting my sister in Sacramento, read one entry from 5 years ago. Instead, I drove to my little sanctuary and spent the weekend reading mystery novels and eating ice cream for breakfast. Sometimes a woman needs to disappear into her own life. Reading those words, I felt like Grandma Chen was speaking directly to me from beyond the grave. She'd understood something about our family that I was just beginning to figure out. Sometimes loving people means setting boundaries they won't like. That evening, while I was arranging my clothes in Grandma's closet, my phone started buzzing. Text after text from my family. Mom: Sarah, where are you? Your car's not in the driveway. Dad: can you pick up dinner on your way home? Emma's staying late for art class. Emma: hey, can you Venmo me $50 for new brushes? Mom said to ask you. I turned off my phone and made myself a cup of tea in one of Grandma's delicate porcelain cups. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Over the next week, I systematically extracted myself from every financial obligation I'd been carrying for my family. The car insurance was the first to go. I called and removed myself from the policy entirely, since my car had its own coverage through my work. The representative was confused about why I was canceling coverage for vehicles I didn't own, but she processed the request anyway. Then I tackled the phone plan. Switching to an individual plan would actually save me money, and I'd get better service. When I called to make the change, I discovered something interesting. My family's plan included unlimited international calling and premium data packages that cost an extra $40 a month. Apparently, Emma had been making regular video calls to some art student she'd met online in France. The streaming services were easy, just a few clicks to cancel family sharing and set up my own accounts. But the internet bill revealed another surprise. My parents had been paying for the highest tier of service available, with speeds they definitely didn't need, because Emma insisted she needed it for uploading her digital art portfolio. That $80 monthly bill could have been $35 for basic service. Every canceled payment felt like shedding weight. I'd been carrying so much financial responsibility that I'd forgotten what it felt like to have my money actually belong to me. But the real discovery came when I started going through the receipts and bank statements I'd been meticulously keeping for tax purposes. Over the past 2 years, I'd given my family over $20,000. $20,000 that could have been savings, investments, travel, or just basic financial security for myself. I was looking at these numbers on my laptop, sitting on Grandma's couch with the ocean breeze coming through the open balcony door, when my phone rang. My mom. "Sarah, I've been trying to reach you for 3 days. Where are you staying?" "I found a place," I said simply. "What kind of place? And why aren't you answering our texts?" "I've been busy. Moving is a lot of work." There was a pause. "Moving? Sarah, you don't need to move. The basement is perfectly fine, and this whole thing has been blown out of proportion." "Mom, you gave away my room and left me a note." "A note? Like I was a delivery driver, not your daughter." "We thought you'd understand." "Emma really needs—" "I don't care what Emma needs," I interrupted. "I'm done understanding. I'm done making sacrifices that nobody appreciates." "That's not fair. We appreciate everything you do for this family." "Do you? Then why did you assume I'd be okay with living in your basement? Why didn't you ask me before completely changing my living situation?" Another pause, longer this time. "Where are you staying, Sarah? We're worried about you." "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." "But where—" "I have to go, Mom. I'll talk to you later." I hung up and immediately turned my phone to silent. I wasn't ready for the full confrontation yet. First, I needed to establish my new life completely. Then, I'd deal with the fallout. The next few days were the happiest I'd been in months. I worked from the apartment. My job was fully remote anyway, and the internet here was actually faster than what I'd had at my parents' house. During my lunch breaks, I walked on the beach. After work, I sat on the balcony and watched the sunset while eating meals I'd actually chosen for myself. I was starting to understand why Grandma Chin had kept this place secret. It wasn't just about the physical space. It was about having a part of your life that belonged completely to you. No negotiations, no compromises, no guilt about taking up too much room or needing too much. But I knew the peace wouldn't last forever. On Friday evening, exactly 1 week after I'd moved out, my phone exploded with notifications. "Emma. Sarah, what happened to Netflix? It's saying our account is canceled?" "Dad. The car insurance company called. They said you removed yourself from our policy. There must be some mistake." "Mom. Sarah, call me immediately. Something's wrong with all our accounts." I let the messages pile up while I made dinner. Real dinner. Not just whatever leftovers were available in my parents' fridge. Salmon with asparagus and rice, eaten at my own table while watching the ocean turn silver in the evening light. Then I called my sister Emma directly. "Sarah, oh my God, where have you been? Everything's falling apart here." "What do you mean?" "All the streaming services stopped working. Dad's car insurance got canceled, and Mom's freaking out because the internet bill doubled." "Why did the internet bill double?" "I don't know. They said something about losing a bundle discount. And now they're saying we have to pay some huge deposit to get car insurance again because the policy lapsed." I felt a small, vindictive satisfaction. "That sounds stressful. Can you fix it? You're good with this stuff, and Mom and Dad are completely lost." "Emma," I said slowly, "did any of you notice that I haven't been home in a week?" "Yeah, Mom mentioned you were staying somewhere else because you were mad about the room thing. But you're coming back, right? This is just temporary?" "The room thing. Like it was some minor disagreement about wall color instead of them completely displacing me from my own home." "No, Emma, I'm not coming back." "What do you mean? You have to come back. You live here." "I lived there, past tense. You guys made it pretty clear that I don't have a place in that house anymore." But what about the bills and the insurance? "Sarah, I can't afford art supplies if we have to pay for all this stuff ourselves." And there it was. Not, "We miss you," or "We're sorry about how we handled things." Just panic about who was going to pay for their lifestyle now that their personal ATM had walked away. "Emma, you're 20 years old. Mom and Dad are in their 50s. You're all adults. You can figure out your own bills." "But we can't afford—" "Then maybe you need to make some changes. Get jobs that pay more, cut back on expenses, move to a smaller place. You know, the things adults do when they can't afford their lifestyle." "Sarah, you're being mean. This isn't like you." "You're right. The old me would have already fixed all your problems and apologized for being inconvenient. But the old me was living in a basement because her own family thought that was good enough for her. I could hear Emma crying now. I didn't know you were this upset. I thought you understood about the room. I really needed the space for my art. And I really needed my family to treat me like a person instead of a paycheck. But we don't always get what we need, do we? That weekend, my parents finally tracked down my location. I was sitting on the balcony Saturday morning drinking coffee from one of Grandma's cups and reading a novel I'd been meaning to finish for months when I heard car doors slamming in the parking lot below. Through the sliding glass door, I watched my parents walk up to the building's entrance. They looked confused and a little impressed despite themselves. The building was nice, not luxury, but well-maintained, with ocean views and a small garden courtyard. This wasn't some dive apartment they could dismiss as a step down from their basement. When they knocked on my door, I took my time answering. When I finally opened it, both of them stared at me like I was a stranger. "Sarah," Mom said slowly, "whose apartment is this?" "Mine." "Yours? How can you afford a place like this? This has to cost 3 times what you were paying us for room and board." I stepped aside to let them in, curious to see their reaction. They walked through the living room like they were touring a museum, taking in the ocean view, the nice furniture, the obvious signs that this wasn't some temporary crash pad, but a real home. "Jesus Christ," Dad whispered, looking out at the balcony. "You've been living here this whole time?" "1 week," I corrected. "But yes." Mom was staring at the photos on the side table, pictures of Grandma Chen that I'd found in the apartment. "Sarah, these are photos of my mother. Why do you have photos of my mother?" "Because this was her apartment. She left it to me." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the waves hitting the beach 3 blocks away. "That's impossible," Mom said finally. "My mother didn't own property in Half Moon Bay. She lived in that little apartment in Chinatown her whole life." I walked to the kitchen and pulled out the deed from the drawer where I'd been keeping all the legal documents. She bought this place in 1987, paid cash. She's been coming here for over 30 years. Dad took the deed and read it carefully, his face growing paler with each line. "This says it was transferred to you 3 years ago, when she died." "That's right. But why didn't she tell us? Why didn't you tell us?" I sat down on the couch and looked at my parents, really looked at them. They seemed smaller somehow, standing in the middle of a room that represented everything they hadn't known about their own family. "Grandma made me promise not to tell anyone until I needed it. She said sometimes people need a place that belongs only to them." "But this must be worth—" Mom was looking around the apartment with new eyes, calculating. "About $400,000, according to the current market assessment." Dad sat down heavily in one of the dining chairs. $400,000. Your grandmother left you $400,000 and you never said anything." "It's not about the money, Dad. It's about having something that's mine, something I don't have to share or justify or apologize for taking up space in." "But you could have told us," Mom said. "We're your family." "You're also the family that moved me to the basement and left me a note about it." "You're the family that's been taking nearly $1,000 a month from me while I lived in your house like a tenant. You're the family that assumed I'd just accept whatever living situation you decided was convenient for everyone else." The room fell quiet again. Through the open balcony door, I could hear a couple walking by on the beach, laughing about something. "We didn't know you felt that way," Mom said finally. "You didn't ask how I felt. You just assumed I'd understand, the same way you assumed I'd keep paying for your car insurance and phone bills and streaming services forever." "Those weren't assumptions," Dad said. "Those were family contributions. We thought you wanted to help." I did want to help, but help is supposed to be appreciated, not expected. Help is supposed to be acknowledged, not taken for granted, and help definitely isn't supposed to come with the requirement that I accept being treated like a second-class family member. Emma appeared in the doorway then. Apparently she'd been waiting in the car and finally gotten impatient. Her eyes went wide as she took in the apartment. "Holy shit, Sarah! This place is amazing!" "Language," Mom said automatically, but her heart wasn't in it. Emma walked straight to the balcony and looked out at the ocean. You can see the beach from here, and those windows in what used to be your room, they don't have anything on this. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Emma turned back to me with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry about the room. I didn't realize, I knew you'd be upset, but I didn't think about how it would feel to come home and find out we'd just erased you. It was the first real apology I'd gotten from anyone. I know you didn't mean it maliciously, I said, but intent doesn't really matter when the impact is that I felt completely disposable. You're not disposable, Dad said quickly. You're our daughter. We love you. Then why was it so easy for you to assume I'd accept the basement? Why didn't anyone think to ask if I was okay with giving up my room? Because you're the responsible one, Mom said. You're the one who always handles things. We thought you'd just handle this too. And that's the problem. You've all gotten so comfortable with me handling everything that you forgot I'm a person who might have preferences and feelings about her own life. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, pulling out the folder where I'd been keeping all my financial records. Do you want to know what I've been handling for the past 2 years? $23,000. That's how much I've contributed to household expenses while living in your house. $23,000 to live in a room that you gave away the minute it was convenient for someone else. I spread the bank statements across the coffee table. Car insurance for vehicles I don't drive. Phone bills for a family plan that includes international calling for Emma's art boyfriend in France. Internet service that costs twice what you actually need because Emma requires premium speeds for uploading her portfolio. Streaming services for shows I don't even watch. Emma's face was red now. I didn't know it cost that much. I didn't know you were paying for all of that. Because none of you asked. You just assumed it would always be taken care of. We can pay you back, Dad said quietly. I don't want you to pay me back. I want you to understand that I'm not your family's financial safety net. I'm your daughter, and I deserve to be treated like one. Mom was crying now, quiet tears that she kept wiping away with the back of her hand. We didn't mean to take advantage of you. But you did. And when I needed a place to live, your solution was to stick me in the basement instead of having an adult conversation about Emma's needs and my living situation. So what happens now? Emma asked. Are you just never coming home? I looked around the apartment, at Grandma's teacups in the kitchen, at the ocean view, at the space that belonged entirely to me. Emma, I am home.